In a twist that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the patriarch Abraham, we dive into the puzzling story of Keturah. From her mysterious origins to her surprising connection to another major biblical figure, this video uncovers the mysteries of her journey. What was Keturah's true identity? Was Keturah another name for the more famous Hagar? Stick around till the end for a revelation that will leave you astounded and enlightened. Keturah was only mentioned 2 times in the Bible. Let's dive in. According to Genesis 25, 1-4, Keturah was the wife of Abraham, the patriarch of the Israelites. However, her origin is not explicitly stated in the biblical account. This lack of information has led many to speculate about her true identity and the circumstances surrounding her marriage to Abraham. According to the Bible, Abraham got married to Keturah after his first wife Sarah passed away in Genesis chapter 23. This is important because it shows a change in Abraham's life. After Sarah's death, he first focused on finding Isaac a wife in Genesis chapter 24. Then in the next chapter, Abraham finds himself another wife, the mysterious Keturah. Scholars and religious experts have been debating about Keturah's identity. Was she Abraham's wife or a concubine? The reason for this debate is because it's not clear in the scriptures how Keturah was related to Abraham. In Genesis 25, verses 1-2, we read that Abraham had taken another wife, whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. This verse tells us that Keturah was married to Abraham. This means that they had a special relationship, not just a casual one. However, some people think that Keturah may have started as a concubine before becoming a wife, because there was no official marriage ceremony that took place when Abraham married Keturah. Keturah is also mentioned another time in the Bible, in 1 Chronicles 1:32, which says, "The sons born to Keturah, Abraham's concubine, Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. The sons of Jokshan, Sheba, and Dedan." So in Genesis, she is mentioned as a wife to Abraham, and later in 1 Chronicles, she is mentioned as a concubine. So which one is she? People are arguing about whether Keturah was considered important or not, based on the way things were back then. During that time, it was normal for people to have more than one spouse or live together without being married. In ancient societies, concubines could become wives if they had children or if the husband officially recognized them. It's possible that Keturah was both concubine at first and then wife later, which would make sense given her 2 mentions in the Bible. This theory also makes sense in the context of Sarah's elevated status as Abraham's first wife and the mother of the Israelites. By mentioning Keturah as a concubine and then a wife, it would give a definite pecking order to Abraham's wives in their importance to the biblical narrative. It's a complicated situation. However, Keturah is not to be dismissed just because of this. Anyone mentioned in the Bible has a deeper story, and we will find out why later. Before that, we will delve into some other theories about Keturah's origins. Some scholars also believe that Keturah may be another name for Hagar, another one of Abraham's wives, and the mother of his son Ishmael. This theory has sparked a fascinating discussion, with various perspectives to consider. Hagar was introduced in Genesis 16, 1-3, which says, "Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not borne him any children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, 'The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her.' Abram agreed to what Sarai said. So after Abram had been living in Canaan for 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. Some scholars argue that after the birth of Ishmael, Hagar's status was elevated, and she was later referred to as Keturah. However, other scholars disagree with this theory, citing the distinct differences in the biblical accounts of Hagar and Keturah. They argue that Keturah was a separate woman, who Abraham married after the death of his first wife, Sarah, according to Genesis 25:1. This verse introduces Keturah as a distinct wife of Abraham, separate from Hagar. Additionally, name changes in the Bible happen because of a significant event. For example, Abram to Abraham, Sarai to Sarah, and Jacob to Israel. It would be odd for the Bible to suddenly change a person's name without context. Scholars have also debated about Keturah's ethnicity and skin color. Some believe she was likely a Canaanite woman, as Abraham lived among the Canaanites. Other scholars propose that Keturah may have come from the Aryans, the Middle East, or the Arabian Peninsula. Some church fathers even suggest she could be from distant lands like Ethiopia or southern Egypt. Some people who study history and religion think that Keturah may have been a woman with dark skin from Africa, specifically from ancient Ethiopia or Sudan. They believe this because her name means incense, and some of her children had connections to Africa. However, the Bible does not specifically say what Keturah's ethnicity or skin color was. We can't be sure if she was actually dark-skinned based only on the Bible. Dark-skinned or light-skinned, it does not affect her impact on the biblical narrative, as we will discuss next. Keturah is an important person in history because she was married to Abraham and gave birth to 6 sons who became ancestors of Arab tribes. Abraham is considered the father of Judaism, and anyone connected to him is important. This shows that she played a big role in shaping the family lines of nations that were not part of the Israelites. While not part of Israel, her descendants would intermix with a very important biblical figure, as we will find out soon. Keturah had sons who were important for Abraham's family tree, and they also had an important impact on different nations. They were influential in the history of the ancient Near East. They shaped how the region was politically, culturally, and religiously. One of Keturah's sons, Midian, was the father of the Midianites, a group of nomads who lived near the Jordan River. They played a big part in the stories of early Israel. They were connected to Israel because of the man who led the Israelites out of Egypt, the savior of Israel, Moses. Moses lived with the Midianites for a while, as we will soon learn about. Moses came to Midian after he ran away from Egypt. Exodus 2:15-22 says, "When Pharaoh heard that Moses was a Hebrew, he sought to kill him. So Moses fled from Pharaoh and settled in Midian, where he sat down beside a well. The priest of Midian had 7 daughters, who came to draw water and fill the troughs for their father's flocks. Some shepherds came along and drove them away, but Moses got up and came to their rescue, watering their flocks as well. When the daughters of Reuel returned to their father, Reuel asked them, 'How is it that you have returned so early today?' They answered, 'An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock.' He said to his daughters, 'And where is he? Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat.' Moses agreed to stay with the man, who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. This part of the story tells us about a really important moment for Moses. He had to run away from Egypt and ended up finding a safe place with a tribe called the Midianites. While he was there, he met and got married to a woman named Zipporah, who was the daughter of a Midianite priest named Reuel, also called Jethro. This marriage not only gave Moses a safe place to stay, but also helped him build connections with the Midianite people, which ended up being really important later on when he had to deal with the Israelites. When the Israelites were traveling through the desert, the Midianites were sometimes seen as enemies. They would attack the Israelite camps and make trouble, but Jethro, who was Moses' father-in-law, actually gave Moses some really helpful advice and support. He helped Moses figure out how to be a leader and take care of all the people in the Israelite group. What a legacy that Keturah's descendants played in the story of Moses. In a world where people care a lot about power, riches, and fame, Keturah's story shows us that God's kingdom works in a different way. He picks regular people, even if they seem unimportant or are ignored by others, to do important things for His plan. Keturah may have started as a concubine, but she ended as a wife to the father of the faith. God's way surprises and confuses the world's smartest people. 1 Corinthians 1:27-29 says, "But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before Him." Even though people argue about who she really was, we can't deny that Keturah was a mother to 6 sons. These sons later became the ancestors of Arab tribes. Keturah's life shows us that every person, no matter what they're going through or how unimportant they seem, has something special to offer. Her story encourages us to embrace our humble roles, trusting that God can use us in ways we never imagined. Keturah's marriage to Abraham shows that God's plan is not just for one group of people. God has a plan for all the nations. Her story reminds us that God's grace and favor extend far beyond the confines of our preconceptions and biases. In a world where people often have different cultures, religions, and status, Keturah's life shows how we can come together and make peace. It shows that we are all connected in God's creation. The story of Keturah's identity is a reminder that there are parts of God's plan in the Bible that we may never fully understand. This shouldn't make us feel discouraged, but instead, it should inspire us to trust in God's wisdom and approach studying the Bible with humility and respect. The ultimate key to understanding the mysteries of the Bible and the revelation of God's plan lies in the person of Jesus Christ. It is through the lens of Christ that we can truly begin to unravel the deeper meanings and significance of the biblical narrative. Keturah's story invites us to expand our understanding of God's plan. It reminds us that God's blessings are not limited to a chosen few, but they are available to all who are willing to surrender to His will.